Thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Paris Schutz. Brandis Friedman has the evening off. Here's what we're looking at.
We're very intentional about ensuring that the community overall was heard in this process.
3 finalists for Chicago's next police superintendent are set to be announced. Cleanup after tornadoes, flooding, and severe weather hit Chicago. Over-the-counter birth control pills get the green light for the first time ever in the U.S. What you should know.
It's a very human approach to healthcare.
It is.
And a pilot program has paramedics making house calls for high-risk patients. Now to our top story tonight. Chicago is about to be one step closer to getting a new police superintendent. After months of reviewing applications, the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability will announce the 3 superintendent finalists they'll be giving to Mayor Brandon Johnson. Chicago Tonight's Joanna Hernandez is outside Kennedy King College on the city's south side, where the commission plans to announce their picks. Joanna, this has been a very long process, as we know. What's the latest?
Well, Paris, that's right. The commission worked for almost 120 days reviewing applications, conducting interviews, and hosting community meetings all across the city. Now, I had a chance to speak to one of the members of the commission, Ramel Terry, about this journey, and she tells me they focused on listening to hundreds of Chicagoans.
I think it's also been something that we haven't seen, right? This is a historic moment. We have had the opportunity to go to the FOP Lodge, and they were grateful. Like officers were saying, this is the first time anybody has ever asked us what we wanted. Can you imagine, in all the iterations of a superintendent, this is the first time anyone has come to them to ask them these questions?
We know that 54 people applied for the position, and the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability narrowed it down to these 6 candidates. 5 of the 6 candidates have ties to the Chicago Police Department, and Sean Barnes is the only candidate currently serving as a police chief. He's in Madison, Wisconsin. Another thing Terry mentioned learning through this process is that Chicagoans and police officers want the same qualities in the next top cop, someone who cares about moving the city forward and focuses on rebuilding the bridge between the police department and communities.
They want someone who is in this position who can lead the entire city of Chicago, who is focused on equity, who is focused on bringing community to the table, who is focused on officer wellness, who is focused on building and establishing trust where there's never been that trust.
We're told the panel met today for a closed session to vote on the 3 candidates moving to the next round, and then the commission will make an announcement within the hour at a press conference inside Kennedy King College. The final 3 will be presented to Mayor Brandon Johnson, who will have 30 days to appoint 1 candidate to the job or ask for a new slate of candidates from the commission. Then the city council has until October 12 to give the green light on Johnson's nomination.
This is a very small part of the work that we do as a commission, and so my hope is that people stay engaged, because what's important to note is that even after a superintendent is selected, an authority that many people don't realize that we have, if we find that this individual is not doing a great job on the behalf of Chicagoans, we can put forth a vote of no confidence, which would then require a hearing with city council members.
It's a lengthy process, but one that the commission says is completely different than prior superintendent searches. Now, as I mentioned, the announcement will be taking place inside this college. It will be open to the public, where they will be taking questions first and then announcing the 3 finalists. Reporting live from Englewood, I'm Joanna Hernandez. I send it back to you.
Joanna, we await that announcement within an hour. Thanks very much. And now to some more of today's top stories. Yesterday, the severe weather. Today, the aftermath. Multiple tornado touchdowns were reported last evening across the region in places like West Suburban Elgin, where residents are sifting through the damage. Here you're looking at the Northwest Bible Baptist Church and some cleanup crews taking some tree branches there. A little collapsed roof, it looks like. In Chicago, Park District officials issued warnings not to go in the water this morning because of dangerous waves and rip currents. And we're going to have much more on this onslaught of severe weather in just a moment. As such, the Better Business Bureau is warning about weather scammers. The agency says these storms are a perfect opportunity for storm chasers to come in and offer damage repair services. often pressuring people into accepting their business and doing shoddy contracting work. The BBB says to get multiple quotes on repair work, check for proof of insurance and licensing, and get references from people you know. There might soon be a limitation to how long Chicago's top watchdog can serve in that role. City Council's Ethics Committee today advanced a measure to limit the city's Inspector General to 2 four-year terms. The current Inspector General, Deborah Witzberg, has been on the job since April of last year. She took over for Joe Ferguson, who had served in the post for 12 years. Proponents of the ordinance say the term limits are a good way to ensure the office's independence from city agencies that it oversees. Up next, inside the latest round of severe weather and flooding. That's right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
A sight rarely seen in these parts. Multiple reported tornado touchdowns in the Chicago area last night, including one near O'Hare. And this comes right after the governor and the Cook County Board president declared disasters from previous floods. And here to talk about the latest severe weather are Paul Servatka, a professor of meteorology at the College DuPage in Wheaton, and Kevin Fitzpatrick, the assistant director of engineering at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. Welcome back, both of you, to Chicago Tonight on this very historic week here. First, Paul, you were out chasing these tornadoes. Don't try this at home, folks. What did you see last night?
Well, there was a number of storms that were forming kind of in north-central Illinois, pushing off to the east-southeastward. I had targeted primarily northern Kane County. I think the first tornado was the one that hit up near Huntley, a little bit further to the north, and then the one further south toward Elgin did produce a tornado. And it actually was producing two tornadoes on the ground at the same time. One of them was an EF1 tornado, and the other was an EF0, but they were simultaneous.
And look at the debris flying around there. Are there any reports of injuries or fatalities or anything like that, or did it seem like most people were safe?
I think most people were safe. There might have been a few minor injuries, but nothing major. The tornadoes themselves were relatively weak and not long-lasting, but they're still surveying the damage. It would be possible to have perhaps an EF2, but for the most part, EF0 or EF1 tornadoes were the call yesterday.
And Kevin Fitzpatrick, you know, you've had your hands full with flooding from a week ago. How are the deep tunnel and reservoir systems holding up right now with this latest round?
Well, I think every time we make a little bit of progress, it seems to rain again and fill it back up. Currently, the McCook Reservoir is full. The deep tunnel system is about half full. I believe we're starting to dewater it again now in preparation for the next storm. Fortunately, on the south side, we have another big reservoir, the Thornton Reservoir. That's only 35% full right now. So we're in good shape if another storm hits on the south side, but we really got to get the McCook Reservoir dewatered to be ready for another big one in the major Chicago area.
So McCook, would that handle stormwater from like southwest areas of the county?
That's right. It's 87th Street is the unofficial dividing line. So north of 87th basically goes out to the McCook Reservoir, and that's for the city of Chicago and about 37 suburbs out in the west and northwest area.
All right, Paul, I kept hearing meteorologists last night say how rare they thought it was to see this amount and this frequency of tornado touchdowns so close to the city. How rare was it?
Well, Chicago has never been protected from tornadoes, so that's probably the first thing that I want to clarify. That we get these type of events in July, I think what's happening is we are becoming much more adept at identifying these circulations of weak tornadoes. And there's a much heightened awareness, and so we are identifying them and spotting them more frequently. Now, that's not to say that this pattern that we're in July with cold air to the northeast and warm air to the southwest is creating the jet stream displaced further to the south. And anytime we have these thunderstorms formed underneath
Paul,
that,
I want to interrupt you real quickly because we're looking at a picture of folks taking shelter in the underground terminal at O'Hare. I mean, that's how severe it was, but there was a touchdown reported near O'Hare. Go ahead.
One of my former students, actually, Grant Hill, actually took a video of that tornado across the street from where he worked at O'Hare. So yeah, these storms were numerous. They were not long-lived, sustained supercells. They were kind of shorter-lived, but they were a number of places from DuPage County, out in Kendall, Kane County, McHenry, Lake, Cook County. Everyone seemed to take their share of tornadoes yesterday.
And we should credit the warning systems here, air raid sirens going off, and then cell phone warnings. It really did seem to reach as many people as possible, and no doubt made a difference. Kevin, Mayor Johnson last night once again urged residents to hold off on long showers, running dishwashers, running their clothes washers. Why does that make a difference during a heavy rain event?
Well, the storm sewers in Chicago and 52 of the older suburbs are all combined sewer systems, which means the waste from people's homes and businesses goes out into the street, into the same sewer that the rainfall ends up in through the gutter. So any amount of water that we can keep out of the sewer system during a heavy rain allows additional capacity to accommodate that rainfall. So if we could get enough people to sort of curb their water during these storms, we can, every drop we keep out of there is probably a drop that otherwise might be in somebody's basement.
Every little bit makes a difference now, especially when you consider what's happening on the west side and Cicero, where thousands of basements have been flooded and folks are still cleaning up after that. Paul Servatka, can you talk a little bit about the weather patterns we're seeing across the country? I mean, it seems like it's extreme everywhere, whether it's extreme heat in the west and southwest, flooding here, flooding in the northeast, like Vermont, unprecedented flooding there. What's happening right now?
Well, we've talked about this several times about this upper level low that exists in the Northeast, and that's really cold air at the mid levels of the atmosphere. And when you have that strong cold air combined with the strong warm air to the southwest, that sets up a stronger jet stream, and it's the jet stream that gives the energy for these storms to become severe. Really, it creates up a vertical sheared pattern, and that's why we're seeing a heightened tornado response.
How about that extreme heat in the west? I mean, in Phoenix, I was reading they might hit 120 degrees, and they haven't gone under 110 in like a week.
Yeah, that's an upper level ridge of the jet stream. That's centered over the southwest, and that is shifting to the central United States, which is more typical of what we see in the dog days in July and August.
All right, so we have that to look forward to. Kevin, very quickly, does Washington or local leaders need to think about billions more in additional stormwater infrastructure after the billions that have been spent on the deep tunnels and reservoirs, just given the frequency of these storms?
Yeah, we really do. Our infrastructure is taxed to the limit right now, and any money we could get from the federal government would go a long way in helping us out.
All right, well, it feels like we're going to be having these discussions a lot. Paul Servatka, Kevin Fitzpatrick, glad to see both of you, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
And up next, what to know about the new over-the-counter birth control pill, so please stay with us. Access to contraception is about to get a major boost. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, for the first time, has approved an over-the-counter birth control pill. It comes as several states have cracked down on reproductive rights, including abortion, in the wake of the Dobbs Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade. Just how accessible will the pill be, and when will it be available? Joining us with more on this development is Interim Chair of Rush University's OBGYN Department, Dr. Sadia Haider. Dr. Haider, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, how significant is this FDA approval today?
Yeah, this is an incredible moment in reproductive health care in the United States. It's the very first time that a pill or any birth control option is available over the counter in our country. And so I would say it's a really momentous occasion. really hopefully moving the needle on making more contraception options more accessible for our patients.
Do we know anything at this point as to how much this will cost over the counter?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we don't know the exact cost yet. The company has said they are committed to making this affordable. I think the key piece about making something accessible and really reducing barriers to access is making sure the cost of it is minimal to low cost for our patients. So we anticipate that the company will stand behind that to really make it accessible on a large scale for most patients.
And you mentioned barriers to access because obviously women now need a prescription. What exactly are those barriers and how expensive is it if you do indeed have a prescription?
Yeah, it's the barriers include really having to get to an appointment to see a provider. For some of our patients, that's really a hard thing to navigate, often to figure out where to go, getting an appointment, figuring out the logistics of getting there. Insurance will often cover the method. The cost may not be an issue with some insurances, but others it may be a higher cost, so that can be really variable for patients. I think ultimately the important thing to note is that, making more options available and more accessible to patients will just really open up the opportunity for access to many more patients than we are currently reaching.
Are there more options coming down the pipeline you think that the FDA is going to consider?
I'm not aware of any other over-the-counter medications that are coming out anytime in the near future. I'm personally not aware of that. This particular pill has been researched, and for decades, this sort of data has been collected to be presented to the FDA. So given the systematic and long-term approach it takes to bring a method over the counter, I'm not aware that any other methods are currently this far in their development process to get them over the counter.
We know what a long, intensive process it can be to get to this point. So what about safety measures people should keep in mind? Because now they won't have to go to a doctor and talk about it first before getting a prescription. They can just walk right into the pharmacy.
Yeah, I mean, like many other medications that are now over the counter, we know there are things like GI medications like Pepcid and other medications over the counter. This medication is similarly incredibly safe. Again, decades of research and data has shown that this has been safely used amongst large groups of patients. There are very few contraindications, and the package labeling is very clear on what those are. And ultimately, I think we know from patients that studies have shown that they are able to consume these medications and safely use them from the data. And so ultimately, most patients can still go to their provider if they choose. That's not something that we're saying you don't have to, you shouldn't do, but it's really a personal choice. And if this is accessible and more convenient, the majority of patients can do this safely.
And we're looking at some of the side effects that the U.S. FDA have listed, like bleeding, headaches, dizziness, nausea, and cramps. And there is a risk here for folks that perhaps are suffering from breast cancer or worry about breast cancer, that it should not be taken with that, correct?
That is correct. So those side effects that you mentioned are very rare side effects with this method and other birth control pills that we prescribe as well. The same side effect profile is there. So again, those are all very side effects that are not particularly harmful, but often just can be frustrating to patients, and they can continue to go forward and address that with their healthcare provider if they choose to. The one scenario which a patient should be more concerned about taking this pill is breast cancer. The FDA's ruling is really taking in the whole body of evidence that the vast majority of patients can still take this very safely, and with the labeling around breast cancer, that patients should still not be put at increased harm.
And very quickly, when do you think that this will be available now that it's gotten the approval over the counter?
Yeah, it seems that the company has said that this should be available by 2024, is my understanding.
All right, Dr. Sadia Haider, a big day here in contraceptive care. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Up next, a pilot program partners paramedics with preventative health care, so please stay with us. If you've ever interacted with a paramedic, it's likely been for a medical emergency at your home. But a pilot program launched last fall puts paramedics inside patients' homes for non-emergency visits too. 12 community paramedics are making house calls for high-risk patients on the south side to help them better manage chronic conditions and support recovery from hospitalization. Their aim is to improve long-term health outcomes for their patients, and they say it's paying off. Producer Erica Gunderson recently did the rounds with one of these teams, and here's another look.
When you saw Dr. Hickenbottom, did he give you like an after-visit summary?
Yes, he did.
Paramedics inherently were detectives. We walk into a home, we see things that are disconnected to how someone is managing their care at home.
Do they have their medications ready to go? Do they have them in a place that they even know where they are?
Can they get their medication?
Do they know how to take them?
When Margaret Pavovar and Lauren O'Connor come to Denise Jackson's home, their visit lands somewhere between a healthcare house call and a check-in with a friend.
I remember hearing you say on visit 1 how much you wanted to sing again and how much it means to you.
Back in 2022, a COVID infection devastated Jackson's lungs and left her bedridden.
Nobody had no answers. So pretty much I just laid in the bed and waited for an answer.
That changed when Jackson became a participant in the Medical Home Network Paramedic Partnership, a pilot program that launched in October 2022. The program connects Chicago Fire Department paramedics with people who need help managing chronic conditions at home.
The two ladies came to the door and they came in with smiles and they were so excited. They made me excited.
Pavovar and O'Connor coordinated Jackson's care with her doctors, helped her manage her medications, and researched exercises to strengthen her lungs.
I was getting tired, tired of fighting, but you all came in and kept me motivated. And
You're giving me goosebumps.
the whole time that I've been in this program, I have not been back in the hospital. I am enjoying life again.
This is a major problem with the healthcare system.
District Chief Jonathan Zaintz says people with chronic conditions often find themselves trapped in a self-perpetuating emergency room cycle that constrains CFD resources.
Fire department ambulances and the engines and the paramedics on those trucks and other vehicles respond every day throughout the day to 911 emergencies. Many of these emergencies are the direct result of chronic healthcare conditions that have caused people to get to a point where their only recourse is to dial 911 and go to an emergency room.
Program leadership says paramedics are uniquely positioned to interrupt that cycle if they're given the right tools.
They're not only comfortable in the home environment, but they're also comfortable in getting things done. They really assess and say, what are some very concrete action steps that we, as this broad care team, can take to really serve the patient better?
They were, finding so many things like broken wheelchairs and medications that needed to be refilled, that as we began the conversation, we understood that what we were looking for as well was someone to actually work with our patients, and it just all came together.
Participant Rosa Gonzalez says O'Connor and Pavovar offered the information she needed to recover from hospitalization for a heart condition.
When we met you, you couldn't walk like a block.
I couldn't walk from here to the washroom, like 10 steps. That was the most that I could do.
Without being
Totally winded.
Yes.
And now what do you do?
I go walking, I go bike riding.
I think you told us up to 5 miles now last minute.
Gonzalez says they also provided the support and encouragement she needed to continue proactively managing her health.
When I went to the hospital, my heart was working only 10%. And I had to become strong. So I took all the help. And I was very lucky that I met them. And that's why I'm sitting here. They're amazing. And they're always going to be in my heart for the rest of my life.
9 months into the pilot, Zaintz says the results are speaking for themselves.
We have individuals that were calling 911 50 times a year that then stopped calling 911 because they've suddenly regained control over their health. It just honestly has blown me out of the water how dramatic that improvement has been. The changes in people's lives and the engagement.
And you are an official graduate.
Yeah.
For Chicago Tonight, this is Erica Gunderson.
The pilot program is funded through Medical Home Network grants. An update: among the patients visited through this pilot, MHN has measured a 47% decrease in hospitalizations and an 88% decrease in emergency department visits. They say those statistics indicate these patients are better managing their chronic conditions and staying healthy at home. It's slated to end this fall, but the organization and the fire department say they are hoping for funding to continue and to expand the pilot. And that's our show for this Thursday night. Don't forget to stay connected with us by signing up for our daily briefing, and you can get Chicago Tonight streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, WTTW.com/news. You can also get the show via podcast in the PBS video app. And please join us tomorrow night for the Week in Review. And now for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Paris Schutz. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a wonderful evening.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm, and proud sponsor of programming that offers advice and strategies to enhance the physical and mental well-being of fellow legal practitioners in Illinois.